Whoop, there it is. Welcome back, everybody, to my stream and Ferrocast F1. I hope all of you have had a wonderful midweek.
This week's income from the sponsors is cleared, and we're making good profit against our running costs.
We are making good profit. We're making bank, as the kids would say. Let me see if I can't do something about this camera, because it's really annoying that when I move, I disappear. Is there something that I can do about this? Let's see if you can live up here in harmony. I have no idea what it's standing on, but it's standing on something. Hey, that works quite well, doesn't it? Why have I never done that before? It's because I'm a fucking idiot, isn't it? That's why. So, welcome back, everybody. We are just about to head into the Austrian Grand Prix. I don't really want to take penalties because I've got a good feeling about this Grand Prix. But we are going to have a brand new power unit, all the components. We have 38 points on the board, which is way more than I was expecting, and we are 7th in the Drivers' Championship. Our teammate Jordan King has improved a little bit. He started getting out of Q1, but it's not really enough. It's not really enough. We've invested in our facilities a little bit, and we will be doing more once we've signed a new driver. In terms of R&D, we have some upgrades in the works, one for the power unit, one for the chassis, and we've almost got enough points for another one. But I do wonder if I shouldn't just focus on durability. Do you know, I might. I know it's boring. I know it's very, very boring, but we're going through, we're not even halfway through the season and we're going through a lot of power unit components already. Oh God.
Where we're able to attract a new sponsor to the team. Head over to the corporate tab and select the sponsors screen to choose who we
And our chassis upgrade failed. Because of course it did. So I've also changed the colour of the team wear. I was complaining on the last stream that the race wear that the pit crew and so on were wearing was really boring, and I didn't know why there were no sponsors on it. I've since found out why there was no sponsors on it, and that's because the sponsors in the background were the same colour, so we couldn't see them. So the car will stay purple and white, but the team wear will be purple and black. It doesn't look as nice in my opinion, but it looks alright. And then season 2 we can worry about making something that looks once I've unlocked everything. Making good progress with unlocking stuff though, we are getting through it. Right. I'm going to simulate practice because who has the time, and I want to get through a few Grand Prix tonight. Let me move this over here a wee bit so that when I get all intense later and lean forward, I'm still in shot. Man, this works better. This works so much better. Try and centre myself in the shot for you because I'm considerate. So there are the new race suits. I know it doesn't look as good as the white and purple, but at least now you can see all the sponsors down the arms, which I think is a good thing. I got a present today as well, can you see? Some I'll slowly rise and slowly descend. Some new Renault teamwear that I got for the Felcast podcast, and I'm breaking it in because everything else is in the laundry. I can't wait for the day one patch for this. That fixes the loading times. Okay, there we go. Right, we'll go straight into qualifying, blast that out, get the race done, and then we have some contracts to deal with, because Jordan King's contract is up, and as decided on yesterday's stream through democratic means, or what passes for democratic means around here, we are getting rid of him, and we're going to use the money we save by hiring a cheaper driver, who again won't bring in any points, so kind of maybe not the smartest decision we'll make. We will invest in the factory. Okay. Can we see what the weather's going to do? Sunny throughout. That's good. And then the race is overcast. Okay, so we don't have to worry about being caught out by rain. Go straight into a flying lap because the race is what we're all here for. I'm going to lean in now and get intense. I love this circuit because it's so much like a go-kart track. And I didn't realise actually until the last Grand Prix, oh hey Wodge, how you doing? I didn't realise until the last Grand Prix just how good it is at shaking cars to pieces, which can only add to the entertainment value as far as I'm concerned. Broke a little too hard there, but better safe than sorry. I'd be a lot happier if our chassis upgrade hadn't failed, because now we're going into this Grand Prix with less of a machine than we would otherwise have. Exactly, mate. Did you have a good one? I mean, I know working days very rarely fall into that category, but, you know, we can but hope. Mine was pretty hectic. Someone outside on the street, you won't be able to hear them because the microphone's good, but it's not that good, is going completely mental. Don't know what about. So we're ahead of Ocon and behind Ricciardo. We will drop down the running order, of course, as more people put in times, but that's a good place to start. And of course I'm wearing my Renault gear, so kind of fitting. I'm filling in a Renault sandwich. It's funny that, isn't it? Because I'm lucky enough to be able to work from home as well, and I'm actually getting more done, but yeah, the work doesn't dry up really.
So far, our fastest lap is a 1 minute 6.9.
So we are 1.5 seconds almost off pole position. A lot more realistic. I've cranked the difficulty up again, and we'll get there eventually. At some point we will stop getting ridiculous results in this car, because it shouldn't be happening in the first season. Max Verstappen currently P2, Carlos Sainz P3, Pierre Gasly P8. Now I do actually have to try and out-qualify Gasly because we picked him as our rival. And that's going to be key to boosting our acclaim. Did I change my tyres? I don't think I did. I'm going out earlier in this session. I know the track will rubber in and everything will get faster, but I don't think we have the pace to get into Q3. So that does actually give me an extra set of tyres if I want them. and I want to see what my actual pace is relative. Yeah, I had to actually spend money on a chair, believe it or not. I mean, I have an office chair, but it's about 12 years old and from IKEA and very, very cheap. And I'm old now and a bit fat, and it's been really painful to stay sat in it all day. So I had to spend money on a proper chair with support and everything. And it's a little bit tragic how much of a difference it's made, because I wanted to use that money on something fun, but instead I had to use it on something for adulting purposes. Yeah, this part of the deal's never explained to you, is it? When you're a kid, and you know, being an adult looks like the easiest thing in the world, and you're learning fucking trigonometry, but no one bothers to teach you how a tax system works. That's a better time. That should be enough to get us through.
We have 2 laps of fuel remaining.
I still haven't had my hair cut as well, which means I'm having to wear my racing helmet to keep my hair out of my eyes. And it's so fucking hot. It's really hot. How much overtime have you been putting in, mate? I hope you're not working yourself into an early grave. I know it can be tempting sometimes. Not placing your office chair at the top of an inclined hill, are you? Slowly rolling towards the railway track.
322.
Because I know the temptation's there. I get it myself. I think it's important to, man. I do think it's important to. Do you know what? I like the pit camera there, because what I'm liking, this is very nerdy, I know, I like that our pit box and the arms outside the garage, and the garage is all still purple and white like the car, but the team wear is purple and black. It's kind of working. And now we can see the sponsors, so happy. Now, I don't know if it's been communicated to you, mate, but after Beetlejuice's relentless lobbying, I have removed the auto mod. And I've unilaterally decided that you and him can be the mods, so I've made you mods. Because he's been pushing me for a while to get rid of the auto mod, because he wants to say certain things that apparently it was censoring. And that's fine, but I need to have a backup plan, so I hope you don't mind. I need like a parachute solution just in case someone random turns up and starts spamming horrific racial abuse or something. And of course it means anyone else who does join the stream has to bend to your will. Been working on my evil laugh, it's quite good. My talents are wasted in my job. Let's speed things up and see if we make it through. Yeah, I know. And I know what he's getting at as well, because he keeps pretending that he's being auto-modded for very innocuous things, but really it's just targeted abuse at me. It's just his mockery of me. He's not getting through the censor filter, and he wants to be able to call me names. I know the deal. Nothing never changes. And we now have the new spec power unit because we've replaced the components, so everything is the new Honda spec. The problem is it's our last power unit for the year, so the next one we take in about 2 Grand Prix time, we're going to incur massive penalties. So I'm trying to think ahead of when I want to take those penalties. But to be fair though, he is right, the auto mod, even when you turn it to something quite light, it's a bit over aggressive, and I guess I know why they do that, but it shouldn't be a problem here because I marked this stream as for mature audiences anyway because of the failcast, and the amount of times we spew horrific language when one of us crashes, or Simon's relentless sexual innuendo that he inserts into all his commentary. I know you will, mate. I trust you. Don't worry. go straight into a flying lap. So it was raining here before, and I thought it would cool down, so I like opened all the windows and everything, but I'm still freaking roasting. Fortunately, the camera cuts off at like shoulder to sort of nipple height, so you can't see that I'm wearing like swimming shorts. I'm wearing like baggy swimming shorts because it's too hot for anything else. Good man, good man. I like 2017, and I was actually playing it for a bit before this came out because I realised I was making myself put up with 2019. And don't get me wrong, like the drivers changing teams was good. It was a fun career mode, but the racing, which is the core of the game, was a lot less fun in 2019 because of the way the AI are. So 2017 and 2016 I have a lot of love for, and you get a good price on it now, don't you? Because I think I picked up my copy for like €7.49 or something, which is pretty good. It's a lot of game for €7. See, bargain. Yeah, normally I don't like to make suggestions to people about what they should or shouldn't buy. Like I just try and give my honest opinion, but I think 2019 is in context. Now I've had a full year with it, and I've got 2020 to compare it to, plus the older games. It's out of all of the ones that have come out, it's the one I find hardest to recommend now in hindsight, and I've really been thinking about it. Before I went to bed last night, I was giving it some thought because I've been talking to Simon about it. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, at first the Halo did really annoy me because I like to drive in cockpit mode because I just think it's a more authentic experience. Now, 95% of the time it doesn't bother me in the slightest that the Halo's there. I almost don't realise it, and I could turn it off or make it transparent if I wanted. But the problem I do have is when the Halo is a problem, it's usually when you're driving into the sun and it covers up either the corner indicator or it covers up the marker board, which it can do. Or sometimes you're approaching a corner and on some cars the Halo, the central column, is just thick enough to hide a car behind it until you're too close to brake. So it's not without its problems. Do you know, I quite like that blue Sauber. The blue and yellow one from the year before was also good, but it's no Sauber Petronas, is it? Or as you say, Alfa Romeo, which I still think will go down as one of the all-time classic liveries. It's a really underrated livery, because every year people look at the stuff like Sean Bull puts out that looks really good, and they always want something like experimental or something that totally shatters the norms. But this year less so, but the last two Alfa Romeo liveries I just think are beautifully tasteful. Like, they're not showy or flashy, but they look really nice and well put together. And like the shade of red that they picked and the ratio of red to white, I think it will age very, very well. I think at the moment there's always a temptation, right, that you want to have something that looks really cool by today's standards, but liveries like that tend not to age very well. And I would put the Alfa livery into what I would call my timeless livery collection. Like the Jaguar liveries, like they'll still look good in 50 years, I think, because they're not of the moment. And if you think about it, there's some of the Red Bull testing liveries that I think will age really poorly, and you'll look back and go, blur. The 90s F1 liveries, there were some that should be shocking, but because I enjoyed F1 at the time, I still kind of have a fondness for them. But if you go back to watching early 90s or late 80s F1, look at the teamwear, not the car, the teamwear from Williams and Benetton, and you'll vomit your intestines out. It's so garish and horrible. And I remember at the time thinking it looks really good, but by today's standards, it's horrible. It looks like a children's TV presenter's gone mad with the crayons. Yeah, like I loved the Telefonica Minardi at the time, and up until quite recently actually, but it has started to look a bit off, hasn't it? And this is part of the reason why I loved Arrows, because Arrows were really good at a timeless livery. They really were. Once the team came back to being Arrows after being Footwork, I don't think they had a bad livery. They were very different liveries, but they didn't have a single bad one, and they've all aged incredibly well.
If you want to know specific information or make certain changes to the car during a pit stop, you can tell me what you want over the radio.
The footwork was ugly, and I always wondered why it looked like that, and I always wondered why those red stripes were like that, but actually if you look on certain years of the car, it's a ribbon. It's supposed to be wrapped in a red ribbon, like a package, because Footwork is a Japanese parcel company, which I could never figure out what they were. I knew they were a company when I was a kid, but they only worked in Japan. So when I googled them, the website was in Japanese, and this was before Google Translate. And all their delivery vehicles were painted the same. They were white with like these red ribbons painted onto them. And so they just copied their delivery vehicles paint job. That was Lola, mate. That was Lola. But I have to say, the 40 cars, they also had really nice timeless liveries. And if I had to pick a team from history that went under that shouldn't have done, because as much as I love Arrows, they made a bad business decision, and that's what put them under. Guido 40 did absolutely everything right, but just couldn't hold on to Pedro Diniz. So... yeah, but I mean, well, he did qualify for some races actually, but yeah, he did come into the sport with a modified F3000 car for budgetary reasons. But 40 and Pacific, they're two teams that did everything right because they won at every level below F1. They didn't like some guys won, like Hesketh, for example. They did some F2, but that was common to have an F2, F1 crossover. But they skipped all the formulae below that. And then you get... yeah, exactly. The thing is, like they either won or competed successfully at a lower tier, and then F1 was like a natural progression for the business. And they just so happened to enter at a time where costs exploded again. Because if you think about it, the start of the 90s and the late 80s, that's when budgets really started to get out of control. And they thought they nipped it in the bud in 92 and 93 when they were like banning all the driver aids. But they didn't ban enough things, and we went through another 8 to 10 years of ridiculous spending. That killed teams that, honestly, I felt were just victims of circumstance. Like, I know the Pacific car didn't perform great, but it should have done on paper. The first Pacific car was a modified Benetton design, basically, and the Benetton was a championship-winning car. It's just that back in those days, it was very hard to get a competitive engine. It was super hard, and that was what always held Minardi back as well. Because particularly when Gustav Brunner was there, they built really quite competent chassis. Some of them handled very well. I remember Alonso saying his car handled great, it was just slow. Because, you know, yeah, they had a Ford like a lot of other people had a Ford, but theirs was like a 3-year-old Ford of a different spec, and they could never get modern spec engines. It was a real shame. And actually, Larousse I will add to that list, because Larousse got screwed by the French government. Because the French government made all their sponsors illegal, and then said, oh, we'll give teams financial aid because it's our fault that you can't get that sponsorship money anymore. And then they gave the money to Ligier but not to Larousse, and so Larousse went bankrupt. There we go. So I've always felt bad for Larousse as well, because they were like a competent midfield team as well. Yeah, it's really stupid, right? And it was to do with corruption in Jacques Chirac's government, because Guy Ligier and Alain Prost who eventually took over Ligier, they were all pally-pally with the president of France, and for some reason they just failed to deliver the aid they promised to Larousse, but they did to Ligier. And it's partly because Ligier is also a car company. That's still going, by the way. You can buy a Ligier today. In fact, I nearly did as a city car last year because they're stupidly cheap. They're only little ridiculous tiny things. You can't drive them outside of the city really, but for getting to work it would have been perfect. But they didn't want the car company to collapse either, so I'm guessing that's why they found a loophole. Yeah, they're speed limited because they're there really as city cars or as like your first car when you're a kid, because you can drive them at 16 with a quadricycle license. But there's a Ligier dealership actually on the outskirts of Berlin, and I've been and sat in one because I've always written them off as well, and people always told me, oh, don't buy a Ligier, it's a stupid little car. But when you sit in one, they're very well made, beautiful comfy leather seats, proper entertainment system, air conditioning. It's a real car. It's just got a teeny tiny little engine, but that means it doesn't really drink fuel. And the streets are so busy around here, I'd never even get up to 45 kilometers an hour. And given how cheap it is, I've done the maths, and it would work out cheaper to run than it would to constantly buy the annual public transport ticket. So there's an economic argument for it as well, but in the end I decided to hold off. Yeah, but I mean, they also have a sports car. I don't know if it's on sale yet, but they're starting to make grown-up cars for people with licenses. I think they'll go electric eventually. But I've decided to go the opposite way because the idea was I was going to get this crappy little Ligier just to get to work in because public transport's been doing my head in. And then I was going to use my savings to buy a house. But property prices here are just, they're fucking insane. And I've decided instead to carry on renting where I am because the rent is stupidly cheap because it's a really old contract, and I'm just going to spend the money on a nice car. Decided I've earned a nice car.
All right. Call that a successful qualifying? We should be in with a good
And I'm going electric as well. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't have many fancy things, and I've got a proper grown-up job now, so a Polestar 2, mate. I'm already emailing back and forth about what we can do on price. But yeah, a Polestar 2 is the aim. Because it's a good time to buy right now as well. It would be out of my price range, but there's a government subsidy right now from the German government. So if I bought it, I'd get something like 8,000 to 10,000 off the list price back as a tax refund, which is like a fifth of the price of the car. And then there's a free charging point nearby that I could, as long as I sneak in early in the morning before someone else gets there. There are there's a very limited number of totally free charging points, so I could go help myself to some free electricity for it as well. The problem is that I was coming home from work a few months ago, and someone had parked. They had a Hyundai Ioniq, I think, and they parked and were taking some of this free electricity. And obviously they'd left their car there all day, and someone had got really upset about it. And they'd poured a chemical over where the power wire was connected to the car, and set it on fire. And I walked past this car that was on fire, had to go round it because the fire brigade were already there. And there was two guys who had obviously done it hidden behind a bush in front of a restaurant, like peeking round the corner, watching this car they'd set on fire. So it kind of makes me nervous as well, using the free charging point. Yeah, but it's a good thing, right? I mean, they probably should have put more there, and 4,000 is is good, but I mean, maybe they could have offered a little bit more. But I mean, that's ultimately what we want, right? More electric cars on the road. The dad side of my family's originally from Norway, and I spend quite a lot of time there travelling. And if you go to places like Bergen, almost every car is electric. It's amazing, and the air is so fresh. I mean, it's fresh in Norway anyway, but the only weird thing is that the roads are basically silent. Occasionally you just hear this just like a little hum, but you can't hear when cars are coming from a distance, so you have to kind of pay attention. Right. Yeah, you're right. To be honest with you, I think there should be a limitation on who can claim it. Because the aim of it should be to get older cars off the road, right? Not take someone's Porsche and give him a tax rebate for changing it. So I think there should be an earnings cap to get that subsidy. Like if you earn less than, I don't know, 40,000 euros a year, then you can get the subsidy. I would think that was fair. Yeah, let's develop that. Because, you know, it doesn't really matter if someone's got a 2-year-old Audi diesel, because they're fairly clean already. But what you really want is, you know, someone like my dad, or presumably your family. I mean, I guess neither of us are wealthy, I don't know, but I'm guessing, who, you know, have cars that are approaching, you know, 10 or more years old. You know, second-hand things that need to be taken off the road eventually. So I actually think, yeah, you're right. Those subsidies should go to the people that could help most. And there are some Renault and Nissan electric cars that are actually aiming for the lower end of the market, the cheaper end. And a 4,000 subsidy, that would bring those cars, I think, within reach of a huge number of people. And eventually it pays for itself. I know it's government money, which is money from you and me and so on, and they have to be careful about how they spend it. But eventually you'd make the money back, because at least back in the UK and here, for example, one expense that no one ever thinks of is there are cleaning crews from the local authority, and their job, the specialised people, is to go and clean the black, God, I forgot how to speak, basically the car fumes. They go into the air and then they land on statues and buildings and so on, and all the buildings end up looking black, particularly like sandstone buildings. So there are people who are paid quite a lot of money, because like London alone is a huge city, so you need a lot of cleaning crews, and their job is to just go around and power wash off all these air pollution particulates off buildings. And then, you know, switching everyone to electric, Britain at least is investing in nuclear power, and Scotland's got enough wind power now that it can power 2 Scotlands, which is cool. So if you reduce the demand for petrol, you're going to reduce the cost of fuel generally, and things that have to run on fuel still become a lot cheaper to run. So I think it's worth the government investing in it. I do. But I guess we'll see what happens.
Good job yesterday from Valtteri Bottas. The Finn starts from pole position with Charles Leclerc alongside.
Do you know, I was so busy having this intelligent, highbrow conversation with you that I forgot where I qualified. 5th, right?
Max Verstappen, Williams, Ricciardo, Albon, Norris.
I'm a huge believer in hydrogen fuel cell technology. I really am. It's just a case of safe storage and transport at this point. Jordan King qualified 18th. That's not good enough, Jordan. It's just not good enough. but he's getting fired after this race. That qualifying confirms
We've
it.
got some points on the board. Let's continue this form and aim for another top 10 finish.
Yeah, that would be the ideal solution, wouldn't it? What they've done here in Germany is they've not sponsored it, but the government has said every petrol refilling station, by law, has to have an electric charging point. And that law has already been announced. I don't know when they have to comply by. But that's how they're forcing adoption of electric cars, because, I mean, that's what holds a lot of people back, right? That if you need to go on a long journey, like if I needed to drive to Munich for any reason, most electric cars won't make it. And I'll tell you what I'm thinking of here is the Formula E team, NIO, it's an arm of the car company. They have these completely automated stations that are on the roadside, and you drive your car in and it automatically lifts the car off the ground, pulls the battery out, puts a new battery in and charges your battery for the next customer. It's like a rack of batteries. And the technology works really, really well. And they've not arrived in Europe yet, but they're planning to. I made a good amount of money off that technology, believe it or not, because when I read about it, I went and bought some shares in NIO, and I've never bought shares before. And I got them for, I think, $2.64 per share. And today they broke $14. So I've made a ridiculous profit on it. I mean, not rich. I constantly every day wish I'd bought more. But what that tells me is that the technology is being adopted in China. People are using it and it's working because their sales numbers are going up as well. So I'm hoping they come to Europe because they have a patent on that technology. But I'm sure that those charging stations will eventually become universal. Everyone will just use NIO batteries, I guess. And when you can charge a battery about as quickly as you can refuel, then suddenly electric cars become totally viable and there's no reason not to buy one anymore. So between that and what the German government's doing, I think the future looks pretty rosy if you're in the electric car industry. Oh yeah, they may end up folding. Who knows, but oh, I didn't thank you, mate. I didn't use my push to pass button. I thought I felt a little slow.
That's a strong start.
I caused a yellow flag there by spinning a little on the apex of the corner. But I didn't hit anyone. So I'm being good. I also designed some special edition liveries for the car this morning. I had 20 minutes before I had to start work, and I thought, I'm going to play around with the livery editor, and that's how I changed the team wear to black and purple, so you can see the sponsors. And later on, I'm gonna poll opinion somehow because I've designed 3 special edition liveries for Silverstone. And we'll see which one resonates. Right, I'm not going to turn my fuel burn up just yet because the power unit seems rather thirsty.
Try to stay with him, he might make a mistake. We could still regain the position.
Some nice clean fighting there. See, if this was 2019, he would have turned in on me. A sad day for Mr. King indeed. But I honestly think if the AI is worth its salt, Williams will hire him. Because he's equally or more skilled than Nicholas Latifi, and he's cheaper by a significant margin. excited for the Styrian Grand Prix. I'm actually looking forward to this weekend. I enjoyed last weekend so much. Yeah, maybe Claire doesn't want him. Oh no, my DRS is broken on the one lap where I could use it. You suck, reliability. Do you dare make a prediction for race winner and pole? Do you think Bottas has got the psychological advantage now?
DRS will be offline. There's a fault with the rear wing system.
No, me neither actually. Particularly if it rains, but I don't think that it will. Although, interestingly, I don't know if they're lying or not, but I saw an Autosport piece today where they'd spoken to Mercedes, and they said that they will have the gearbox issue again at this Grand Prix because it's impossible to fix it in such a short amount of time. So, but that surprises me though, because Honda have managed to make a new specification power unit for Red Bull to avoid a double DNF again. So it's odd that Honda could do it and Mercedes couldn't, but maybe it's a more complicated fix, I don't know. Still though, I'm excited by this because the threat of the Mercedes shaking itself to pieces at any moment just livens the whole thing up, and it doesn't make a Mercedes 1-2 feel like a foregone conclusion.
Our gap to the car in front is 3.1 seconds.
Yeah, apparently not. I didn't see the Alonso interview, although I did read about what he said, and it was interesting his comment saying, well, if everyone thinks like some of the fans do, then Mercedes would drop Hamilton and have Russell and Bottas. But I don't think that's necessarily a fair comparison. I understand his point, but Hamilton's only 35 and he's still at the absolute peak of his talents. Alonso hasn't won a race since what, 2015? Or was it 2013 even? It was a long time. And he's going to be 40 on his comeback and 41 in the second year of his deal. And I also saw an interview with Cyril where he said specifically before they signed the contract with Alonso, they told him in no uncertain terms that he can't talk about them the way he talked about Honda. So it was interesting to see them nip that in the bud straight away. Because he has been fairly outspoken. I forgot as well, because the article obviously talked about the GP2 engine comment at Honda's home race, which I forgot it was in the Japanese Grand Prix that he said that, so it's extra salt in the wounds. But I forgot that also at a press conference in Monza on some Ferrari anniversary and his birthday, they'd asked him, what do you want for your birthday? And he said someone else's car. So that's what pissed Ferrari off with him, and I'd totally forgotten that he said that, but he did. I remember it. And maybe it's true. Like I can sympathise with him, but this is why it's been impossible for him to get a truly competitive IndyCar ride, because no one wants to touch him. I am curious to see how the Renault develops though, because it did look like the car had improved, and I feel like we can't judge it yet because obviously it was its first outing in this specification, and Ricciardo didn't get to finish the race, so we don't know where ultimately he would have been, but I thought the car looked leaps and bounds better than it did the year before. Yeah, no, he does. Honestly, I think that's my real opinion, that he still has a place in racing for sure, and he will for many years to come, but his F1 days are behind him, I think. At least his competitive F1 days, and I cannot think of a driver who's had a successful comeback, like a consistently successful one. I know Michael Schumacher got a podium at Monaco on his comeback, but the rest of his return was completely forgettable. Yeah, Prost actually. Prost had a year out, didn't he? Yeah, well done. You corrected me there, and you're right.
Okay, gap ahead is 4.1 seconds.
Lauda you could also put in that category, I suppose, because he was out for quite a while with his injury. But he came back in the same season he was injured, though, didn't he, actually? So he came back to the same car. He didn't have to adjust, I don't think, in the same way. But, you know, when I think of, like, Andretti, Mansell, I think more often than not, when you're out, you know.
Release. Look after these tires now. We wanna finish the
If you believe the Polish fan forums, that's exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to say it now, there's no way he's getting that race seat. Just none. And to be honest with you, I wasn't even sure he'd get the one at Williams. Because the first year that he didn't and it went to Sorokin, I was saying all along it would go to Sorokin. Because Renault had just signed Carlos Sainz, and they publicly said, oh, sorry, my door's ringing, one moment. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry about that. But yeah, Renault had said that they would have taken Sorokin if they weren't able to get Sainz, and they also said that Sorokin had comprehensively outperformed Kubica in testing, because this is before they'd done publicly announced lap time testing, so everyone was speculating if Kubica... you do have mod powers, mate, but I honestly don't know what they are. And given you're the only one in chat right now, I guess they're probably quite ineffectual, but but at some point in the future. And all the time, Williams were being really late on deciding. And all their social media channels were being brigaded by Polish fans. And they got so much shit from the Polish fans for not taking Kubica that first year. And in the end, Sorokin did a better job than Kubica in real terms. I know Kubica looked into a point at Germany, but Well, honestly, I think they took him for the PR. I don't know how much all of them were spending, but I got the feeling they took it for the PR in the end, because they announced it around Christmas time, and it felt very feel-good story, happy Christmas memory. But I said at the time, for me, Kubica is the world champion that we never got to see. I honestly think if he hadn't have had his rally accident, he would have eventually won a world title, at least one. I thought he was an astonishing talent, but he had his arm amputated and reattached. And I said all that worries me is that him coming back risks tarnishing his legacy. Like, will people remember him at his best, or will he become some kind of joke? You know, will he become the last guy on the grid consistently, which he did, and will people always be mocking him? And will that, in F1 fans' memories, override the memories they had of him before then, of this absolute immense talent? And it reminded me of the saying, it's better to remain silent and be thought an idiot than to open your mouth and remove all the doubt. And I honestly think it would have been better for him to have remained a what if for his legacy. It would be different if he hadn't have had the accident, and if he was still capable of driving at a comparable level to what he did in the past, but there was no way he was ever going to reach the pace that he had. So yeah, I mean, it's true, he did get a point, which it did put a smile on my face, but at the same time, I know that point should have been George Russell's, really, if it wasn't for a bit of a bizarre pit call that diddled him out of it. So while it's nice to remember it as the race Kubica scored a point, it was obvious to me from the start that it wasn't going to benefit anybody, because also the Polish fans that were so happy that they hired Kubica, none of them are grateful to them for firing him. So all the goodwill they earned in Poland for that one season was completely evaporated by mid-season, because the Polish fans had already decided that because the team was British and George Russell was British, that he was getting favourable treatment within the team, and the only reason he was outperforming Robert was because he was in a better specification car and getting all the preferential treatment. It couldn't possibly be to do with the fact that George Russell is a young F2 world champion and Robert Kubica is a middle-aged man with one arm. Yeah, I mean, maybe he did. And I think if we were still in the days of pre-qualifying, I could let him off with that. But we're not, and there's only 20 seats on the grid. And when I think of the people that I would have put in the seat instead of him, it makes me a little bit annoyed. In the same way Alonso coming back makes me annoyed. You know, I mean, I could rattle off a list of names that I think would have been a great addition to the F1 grid if Williams were looking for another driver. You know, I still think Felix Rosenqvist would have made a solid F1 driver, but he never got the shot. So, you know, it's a tricky one. If it had gone well, obviously I'd be talking in different terms. It's just I was never under the impression that it was going to go well. That said, I can still be happy for him that he can now go on to the next phase of his career knowing that he was able to prove everyone, including me, wrong, and actually get back into F1 and finish the season. Because I honestly thought that he would be as slow as he ultimately was, but that he'd get dropped mid-season.
Gap to teammate behind is 18.8 seconds.
Oh yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, you definitely need the characters and everything, and like we all know why Alonso's back, right? It's because there's only one legend left on the grid, Lewis Hamilton, and Max Verstappen is a monumental talent, but it's hard to know if the car's reliably there where it needs to be. Yeah, you've got Kimi as well, but Kimi's no longer in a competitive car, and what they want is someone at least in a midfield machine who's got World Championship credentials, because it's someone to put on the posters and drive the ticket sales, right? Yeah, exactly. He's not a legend yet, although he definitely will be. And they don't feel confident, I guess, in using Leclerc or Sainz or someone else as like a big ticket draw, because they haven't had the careers yet to elevate them into that category. So at least now they can market it as a come and see Fernando Alonso race Lewis Hamilton. I mean, it's not a race that Alonso's going to have any chance of winning, I don't think, but that's down to the car rather than his talent. I tell you where I would have been a little more positive about Alonso coming back is if he was coming back in Bottas's seat and we were going to have the two of them at a team together again, but it would never work. They'd never do it, and it would be damaging to the team in the long term, because they really need to start thinking about a future without Lewis. It's a good question. I think if Bottas is ever going to do it, it will be this year. Beyond that, I actually think, all things equalised, Leclerc I'd put as slightly more likely than Max, simply because Leclerc's less hot-headed, but it's a cigarette paper between them in my estimations, and I think Max is arguably faster, but faster has very rarely won championships. It's consistency that wins championships. Yeah, I'm rooting for him too, to be honest. I always wanted him to turn into sort of a Mika Hakkinen figure. I really rated him at Williams. I thought the step up to Mercedes was a golden opportunity, and so far he's just not lived up to it. And I'm hoping this year that can change. I know Simon disagrees with me on this a little bit, but I actually think
This is your final lap of the
his
race.
Grand Prix in Austria was superb.
The car behind is dropping back.
Simon disagrees because he's tired of every year hearing about a new version of Bottas and how this year is going to be different and everything, but I think we really are seeing a different Bottas now, because I mean, he had to undergo 4 safety car restarts against Lewis Hamilton. That's always tricky. He had to manage the car when Lewis was making every effort at one stage to race him and get by him, but he kept a cool head. He didn't make a mistake. He didn't throw it into the wall or spin it. He didn't push any harder than he had to, and he managed the race with a cool head, and it'll be that wins him a title, because it's the same thing that won Nico Rosberg his title. You don't have to be as fast as Lewis necessarily, you just have to be able to consistently maximise your results, and that's what Rosberg did. Well, I mean, it's undoubtable he has a huge advantage right now,
The end of the race. We'll
and let's
see
not forget we may be looking at a season that's only 8 rounds long. So, I mean, really, if you screw up 2 races, like if Lewis has another penalty or a DNF, like his gearbox goes in Styria, he may have failed to win 25% of the Grand Prix. It's hard to come back from that. It's hard to come back, because there's enough points differential now that if they finished 1-2 with Hamilton winning the rest of the season, it's still hard to close the gap. So,
and that's allowed them to get the best out of the car, to maximise the strategy, to stay out of trouble.
He may very well have DNF'd in an eighth of the Grand Prix. 12.5% of the whole season. I mean, in any year that you fail to finish in 10% of the races, you're just not in a strong position. If everyone else's reliability is bulletproof. Luckily, though, for those guys, there was a lot of reliability problems in Austria. So some of the cars that scored good points and teams that scored good points probably won't when more cars finish. So it may actually even out in a weird way. More points on the board. Ka-ching.
Here's how things look in the drivers' table.
Let's see. No changes in the standings at all. No one's moved up, no one's moved down. Oh no, I tell a lie. Daniel Kvyat is now ahead of his teammate.
Carlos Sainz would be my first choice for this race. He had excellent race.
But Jordan King has dropped behind Romain Grosjean in the Drivers' Championship. And I think you'll agree, mate, that is a cardinal sin that cannot be allowed to stand.
They fully deserve it, but I just feel that my pick had a little more on their plate. So their ability to keep
and to be fair, Sainz does deserve driver of the day. So does Ocon. That's a lot of places they gained. And hold on, I didn't notice this. Jordan King bringing it home P13. That is his best ever finish, just as he's fired. Just as he's fired. It looks like Ricciardo and Lance Stroll hit each other as well, because they both stopped twice. No, it's not a podium, and that was the deal. Shall we move on then, do some hiring and firing? Well, Beetlejuice isn't here, and he was of the opinion that we hire Mick Schumacher because he only costs 1 million, and we work on the assumption that he's going to overperform because his name is Schumacher. And even if he doesn't, oh look at all that money we unlocked there. Even if he doesn't, he's still scoring the same points as Jordan King, so does it really make a difference? I'm going to throw this open to you again, because the only problem I have is that if he's wrong about that, and Schumacher doesn't turn out to be OP, then we may have spent half the season with a driver in the car not scoring points when we could have had one that may have done. Because people like Matsushita or Antoine Hubert are higher ranking in terms of talent than Jordan King, but cost less money. Oh, hold on, he's just improved. He's now 71. He was 65, but now he costs 2.5 million. See, I was scared of this happening because these games are always a little janky with when driver improvements apply. The fact that he's just finished in 13th place before he improved to a 71 rank driver suggests that in the second half of the season he may start tickling the tail end of the points. But a deal's a deal. We are going to fire him. So let's see what our options are. See, look at that as well. Nicholas Latifi is now gone from 3 million to 3.75 million. And he's worse than Jordan King. He only costs 2.5. So, options. Nick de Vries was on our watch list. He rates a 69 and costs 2 million. So that would be a step up from Jordan King for 500,000 less. We also have Jack Aitken, 1.5 million, and he also ranks high. Oh, he doesn't though, because here it says his rating is 66, but it's not. His rating is 71. So, I mean, still to me, it looks like Nick de Vries, Antoine Hubert, Jack Aitken, and Nobuharu Matsushita are the logical choices. Matsushita makes sense because we have a Honda power unit. But the alternative down here is Mr. Mick Schumacher, who ranks a 62 and costs 1 million a season. Okay, yeah, that's what we agreed with Beetlejuice last night. Maybe we shouldn't go behind his back. Okay. PAC is pace, yeah. Yeah, so you've got experience, racecraft, awareness, and pace. Yeah, I mean, he's not as quick as Jordan King, who, with the bonuses we have at the factory, would be an 85, whereas Mick Schumacher would be an 82 with our bonuses in place. He'd be more aware though, worse racecraft, more experience. So actually, it's a bit more of a toss-up than I thought. All right, let's take Mick Schumacher.
Here, you can make an offer to your driver. The more you offer, the greater the chance of them
Oh,
agreeing to
this
it.
is interesting.
Be careful not to insult drivers, though. If you do, they might refuse to deal with you anymore in this negotiation period.
Well, we're a much better team than he wants. I'm going to offer him his market value of 1 million. Let's see if he accepts that. He does. So the second half of the season, we have Mick Schumacher in the car alongside us. And I suspect we're going to fire him too. This may now trigger some driver carousel action, because now King's on the market. We may find that other teams pick him up. Right. So we have 5.8 million to do some investing. I'm going to continue on the aerodynamic front, I think. They can. They don't have to, but they can, yes. Yes, I'm going to go for these two. Build time and resource point generation. We can also shut down a facility. I guess that's when you're really fucked on the money front. Okay, no resource points at the moment, but we're going to get extra resource points from this facility once it's ready. Right, let's fill our time then, shall we? What do we want? Race simulations, that will help Mick Schumacher get up to space. Improve department morale. Hey Beetlejuice, how you doing? You've just missed the firing by seconds. It was harder than you may have thought. Yeah, I was talking to Wodge about this. Because you wanted me to get rid of the auto mod, I did get rid of it, but this is the price you pay. You've now been imbued with powers. Just in case, you're my emergency brake now in case some maniac shows up. Oh, I tell you what, let's do PR training, PR filming with Mick Schumacher. You should both have the mod sword. Just you two, though. Not giving it out willy-nilly. So, yeah, we're going to announce Mick Schumacher to the world. And then we have 5 days left. So, I'm going to do race simulations to boost his stats. And then marketing strategy conference. Yes, you have earned it, mate. You've done your time. You've done your bird. I also, now you're here actually, I tell you what, why don't I take a moment to show you some of the liveries I've been working on. So what I need to do then is, I'll advance a little bit first of all. What's this? Suzuka Short Time Attack. We will do that. First though, I unlocked a new livery and some other bits and bats, and you know, I was complaining that the teamwear looked really bland because there was no sponsors on it. It turns out there were sponsors on there, but they were the same colour as the background. So the car has stayed purple and white, which is the classic colours, but the teamwear is now purple and black. It doesn't look as good, but it was the only way I could get the sponsors to show up. And I've been working on some liveries for Silverstone and for Season 2. So I can give you a cheeky peek of our Season 2 livery if you like, and then I'll show you the special liveries as well. So this is our current livery for Season 1. I've mocked it up with the sponsors of ours that I could remember, and I added in 2 that we don't have just to see how the livery will eventually look. This is my suggestion, feel free to critique, for a Season 2 livery. And you'll notice there's 2 tones of purple there, and I like it better simply because all the sponsors will show up in all the places because the colours are distributed the right way. And then I want your opinion on the 2 potential Silverstone special liveries. The first one is the team's alternative colours, because I've run Sim Racing Team since 2007, and the purple and white has been the main colour scheme. The other colour scheme was this. I can take the greeny edge out of the yellow, but basically it's I still need to find the right shades, but the aim is sort of Colin McRae 1995 Subaru Impreza, and that's sort of like legacy colours. And then I've produced an Arrows Tribute livery as well. It's a blend of the 2001 and 2000 liveries, as close as I could get, so that's why some of the sponsors are red. I'm leaving you guys to it. I don't want to get in the middle of whatever battle could commence here now over length of time served. But yeah, this is my Arrows Tribute livery, and the advantage of this is that it matches my helmet. I was also thinking of doing a British Racing Green one, and I did a mock-up of the horrible Union Jack livery just to see how it would look. And actually, in the white and purple of the team, it looks quite good. But we are a team of principle, and we won't do it. But I tell you what, let's take just a second, and why don't we try going a bit British Racing Green? But you have to give me some input here. The Chinese sponsor was a temporary necessity. It was a temporary compromise of our principles. But the only thing with British Racing Green is I'm not sure what colour the sponsor should be, because we can't get metallic gold. We can try and sort of fabricate a gold, but I'm not sure how well it might work. First of all, let's try and find the right shade, eh? So it's sort of it's a very tweedy dark green, isn't it? That's a bit too dark, maybe. What do you think? That's very Jaguar green, isn't it? And then, do we like the black, or should we go all? Let's try looking all green for a second. Yeah, me too. But there are quite a few more. I just haven't unlocked them yet, and they're going to release more with every patch. So eventually, there should be a bit more to it. Do you like that shade, guys? Or I mean, that's more Jaguar green, isn't it? But because I can't have metallics, it's hard to find. See that? I don't know if it's the lighting effect, but that looks a bit not green enough somehow. Let's knock it back up a shade. And what I don't like as well is the number in black on the front. I can't change that. Or the way it's in a circle on the airbox. Sorry, the back of the engine cover. I don't like it. It reminds me very much of like the early 2010 Williams is. Also, I haven't got the shading exactly right, have I? There we go. That's better. I tell you what, let's try putting some sponsors on it and seeing if that jazzes it up a bit. Okay, and we go back. Actually, we'll pretend we don't have the Chinese sponsor just while we're doing a mock-up. And we'll find some cool looking livery to have. I feel like the front wings need to have something kind of big and one of the bigger, taller, like Zer or Neon. They seem to be the biggest ones, or AVAX, whatever AVAX are, or XXY. Actually, that could look really nice. So you guys are telling me yellow, right? Like a goldy yellow. Oh, hold on, that works, doesn't it? Let's try and remember those settings. Okay, and then we'll try. We'll pick a real sponsor that the team has. That's kind of like that. Let's back out a sec. What do you think? Better if it was proper metallic gold, wouldn't it? But, you know, maybe I can also get a better shade of green that we're happier with. I also don't like the controls are a bit unintuitive when you're editing stuff. So maybe we go to like this Caterham Jaguar-y green. Does that look any better? Yeah, it's not really working, is it? It's something for us to think on. Let's get back, see how wee Mick Schumacher does. Let's make sure I haven't changed which livery is actually on the car. Okay. So, I forgot to ask you, by the way, Beetlejuice, how was your day, mate? Did you have a good one? We were complaining about work before you got here. And look what I got in the post for the Failcast. as we're driving for Renault this year. Again, I'm making the effort to dress up, and Simon never does, ever. And here's something cool. Let me show you something cool that I got for free with it. One sec. They sent me a plague mask. I have my very own Renault plague mask, which was nice. Excuse me 1 second, gentlemen. My phone's been going completely mental. Fortunately, though, nothing important. Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? And I need one as well, like this. Because I've got one that's used for like when you're painting, and I've had pneumonia a lot in my life, and I have scarring in my lungs, and it's really hard to breathe anyway. I mean, I can still run and stuff, but my chest gets tight. It's not asthma or anything; it's just scarring, and it can be very hard to breathe in that mask. And I needed one a bit looser like this because I can breathe in this quite comfortably. And I'm taking a flight at the start of next month, and you have to wear the mask from the moment you get into the airport to the moment you leave the airport on the other side. So you're talking like 6 hours, and I would be unconscious long before then with my current mask. I guess we're in agreement that I'm driving the classic McLaren Honda at Suzuka, on the understanding that it's a classic McLaren Honda at Suzuka. Oh no, it's the short Suzuka though, which means I'm going to fuck it up because I forget where the course changes. And also, Williams have they're selling masks for charity, and I'm going to get one of their masks as well, and I'll tell you why. The rules on the aeroplane say you have to change your mask every 4 hours, so I have to take 2. And the Williams one, you don't have to change, and the reason is it has an antiviral layer in it, and it means you can't put it in the washing machine. You have to wash it in cold water by hand. But it means, yeah, that you can wear it as long as you want, which is really, really cool. Finished the race in under 2 minutes 25. 3 laps in 2 minutes 25 of the short circuit. Yeah, maybe that'll be alright. I've not driven the 1988 McLaren yet in this game, but I do love the classic cars in this game. Well, the previous games. I drove the Jordan 191 and Benetton B194 over breakfast as a treat, and it's so much fun. Wow, these cars don't hold the line though. Like, I'm turning the wheels and the car just carries on in the direction it was already going. I have to like come off the throttle for the wheels to grip. Bollocks. I knew that was going to happen though. I was trying to be too fast through the corner, and I didn't want to. I was too stubborn to come off the throttle. There, are you happy now, game? I'm not pressing the accelerator in a racing car, which is kind of defeating the whole point, but... I wonder if they did proper engine sound recordings as well. I'll be honest with you, I'm not expert enough to know, but I know the Benetton sounded like a 90s Formula 1 car, so I'm guessing that they have at least something approximating authentic engine sounds. Because that Benetton like screams when you hit the top of its range. Anyone care to make a prediction for Mick Schumacher's debut? Do we think that he's going to make it out of Q1? I also wonder if Crofty will talk about him before the Grand Prix, because I've seen some clips of other people's playthroughs, and they do talk about driver movements. So that's a bold prediction there, Beetlejuice. You really believe in the shadowy cabal that's there pushing Mick Schumacher towards Ferrari. So do I, actually. What I also want to see is if Jordan King turns up at Williams or another team, because he's on paper rated better than some of the lower end drivers now, and he's comparable to Giovinazzi. Oh, but still, why not? Why not? Are you driving? Is it a sim event, or are you there in a spectatory capacity? Oh, good luck, man. Good luck. I envy people who have the commitment it takes to do a sim endurance event. I'm sure you'll do fine, mate. You have to send us a link so I can come watch you. I'd definitely let me know when your stint is. I'll definitely come and give it a cheeky peek. Oh, it's the same old story.